Let's raise the big questions. The Adani indictment. What happens next in this case? Who is going to order a probe in this country on the Adani group? State governments that are accused of bribery, or the centre, which controls the Solar Energy Corporation of India? Are the centre and the opposition simply passing the buck in this case? Has India's global image taken a hit after the indictment? Just some of the questions we'll raise. Tuhin Sinha, BJP spokesperson, is with me in the studio. Praveen Chakravarty, who heads the All India Professionals Congress, is with us. Subhash Chandra Garg is former finance secretary of the country. Sanjay Hegde is senior advocate Supreme Court, as is Vijay Agarwal, a lawyer in the Supreme Court who's also appeared on occasion for the Adanis. I appreciate all of you joining us here on the show today. I want to start with you, Mr. Tuhin Sinha, first. You're here in the studio, and I want to ask you the simple question. Indictment made in the US suggests that bribes were paid, some as high as 1,700 crores, for specific contracts. The government of India is targeting the Congress party and Rahul Gandhi. Why not instead order a probe and find out whether bribes were paid or not? Doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani, surely.
Rajdeep, the primary onus to act in this case is upon the 4 state governments where bribes are supposed to have been or alleged to have been paid. Now, the strange
why do you say that? The Solar Energy Corporation of India is controlled by the centre. The contracts, all the state governments are saying, were essentially between Solar Energy Corporation of India, a central PSU, and the state governments.
Solar Energy Corporation of India can act, but I think the primary onus is upon the state because the government officials of those 4 specific states have been named over here. Now, when it comes to Tamil Nadu, ideally, DMK is the only surviving state government from that time. Ideally, they should have already filed an FIR by now, but DMK today has plainly denied the charges.
No, but
now,
what stops your government is in power in Chhattisgarh. Your government is in power in Odisha. Why don't they order an inquiry,
Like I said, the primary onus is on them. We are not ruling out any action.
No, why don't you? No, 1 minute. A state, sir, with due regard, state governments, as you rightly said, there is an onus on them as well. What stops the Odisha state government, BJP ruled, and Chhattisgarh state government, BJP ruled, from ordering an inquiry whether bribes were paid?
Ideally, they should. My sense is that they were waiting. My sense is that they were waiting for the first reaction from the chief minister of that time. And the strange part today is that Bhupesh Baghel, who was the chief minister, is now blaming Raman Singh. When is the time when the bribes were supposed to have been paid? 2021 to 2022. Now, he does not even remember that he was the chief minister during that time. You know, it seems that only gives credence to the fact, our accusation that this entire conspiracy seems to have its roots in Rahul Gandhi's association with George Soros.
With George Soros?
Yes.
You're saying that Rahul Gandhi's association with George Soros is responsible for this. I only ask you this before I go to the others. You're saying state governments have primary owners. What about the Solar Energy Corporation of India, on the basis of which these power purchase agreements were signed?
My sense is they're waiting for the state governments to respond. Why I say Rahul Gandhi's connection with Soros is because of the way he drags in Prime Minister at every given opportunity and, indicates his proximity as Adani as the reason behind the scam. Now, the point is, I'm giving you a very simple example. In 2023 February, India struck Tata struck its largest deal ever in aviation history with Boeing. That was also preceded by a Prime Minister's visit to the US. Do they blame Prime Minister as an agent of the Tatas? The BEL and HAL have today recorded 20 times increase in production and exports. Do they blame Prime Minister to be an agent of HAL or BEL? It's very convenient for them to blame, Prime Minister's proximity with Adani, and which is where I question the intentions of Rahul Gandhi.
Okay, just one more question. The reason why maybe the opposition questions the Adani-Modi relationship in particular is because you see the manifold increase in Mr. Adani's wealth coinciding with Mr. Modi's rise as a politician. Again, are you saying, and the fact is, neither side has denied the fact that they've had a certain special relationship.
If you look at the history of Adani's businesses, Adani has been on record to say that it was Rajiv Gandhi's interventions which made, a businessman out of him. If you look at the period between 2007 and 2012, that is where the credit expansion to Adani companies have been to the tune of 76%, highest for any, corporate group across the country. So, if in the preceding period, 2004, if the seeds for this expansion had been laid, it was but natural that if he doesn't commit follies, he will grow.
Okay. Let me bring in Praveen Chakravarty there. Tuhin Sinha raises several important points, particularly about accountability. Let's assume, Praveen Chakravarty, that bribes indeed have been paid as the indictment suggests. Who orders the probe? Where does Rahul Gandhi says that Mr. Adani must be arrested at once. First of all, this is before a US court. The proceedings will take place before a US court. To that extent, you could argue in India, there is limited liability unless a probe is ordered. What is the position of you and the Congress party when it comes to the probe? In what direction and how should a probe be ordered in a case like this?
We must first understand the magnitude and the severity of the situation that we are dealing with today. I think we must not be puerile and childish about this, and we must grow up a little bit and understand this in a mature manner. Let me give some examples. On March 11th, 1999, when I was living in America, the first Indian company, Infosys, came and listed on the NASDAQ stock exchange. It was a proud moment. In July 2001, when HDFC Bank came and listed in the New York Stock Exchange, it was a proud moment for Indian businesses in the same United States of America. Today, we have one of India's biggest businessmen who has been issued an arrest warrant. He cannot step foot in the United States of America, and he's India's biggest businessman. And this is after a 2-year investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, by the Department of Justice, and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, while I understand that some of the people speaking on behalf of the ruling regime think that everything can be managed in every democracy as they do in India, that is not the case in America. It's a 2-year investigation process.
What is the Indian? That's the American side. What about India's responsibility here? The state governments, many of them were opposition ruled. You had a Congress ruled government in Chhattisgarh, for example.
Which is what I'm coming to. Not for a minute do I feel proud that an Indian businessman, a large Indian businessman, is being shamed in America. We don't want that. Now, what is the resolution? What did we do when the Satyam scandal happened in India, on Indian shores? We got together, we said we will resolve this collectively as a nation. These things happen. We understand these things happen. Now, there has been a clear indictment after a rigorous 2-year investigation. We must be mature. After all, we receive $50 billion every year from America. Our image is at stake. Let's be mature. Let's come together. This is not about political point scoring. Whichever government, whichever party was in power, in whichever state, this is why Mr. Rahul Gandhi said, let's call for a joint parliamentary committee and let that inquire. Let all of us come together. Let all of us come together and say we will resolve this.
No, it's one thing it's one thing, Mr. Chakravarty, to ask for a joint parliamentary probe. It's another thing to say arrest Mr. Adani. There's a due process that has to be followed. It's an indictment. It's not a conviction in the United States also yet. He could even file for plea bargaining, and I'll come to that in a moment. But in this country, whose primary responsibility is it to use this indictment to order a full and fair inquiry, in your view?
What does logic say? The US government, the US District Court has ruled that Adani bribed Indian officials, which means the bribe was paid in India. The last time I checked, receiving a bribe in India is also illegal under the Prevention of Corruption Act. So who is in power? Which government is in power at the center? Please, they have very categorically said bribes were paid. Who was it paid to? Please conduct an inquiry. We're all for it. It does not matter to us which party, in which state, and which year, and who was in power. None of that. Okay. Let us come together, whatever the Modi government wants to do. The reason we say that we are skeptical of any action is because of what has happened in the last 10 years. History shows that there will be absolutely nothing that will happen in this case, just as we saw in the SEBI case, where the SEBI chairperson had the gumption, had the audacity to not show up for a parliamentary committee hearing. Why is she scared? What is she scared of? Why is she scared?
Okay.
Is she not accountable to Parliament? Why did she not come on the morning of the day she was summoned? What is she scared of? This is why we're not quite confident of the Modi government's ability to conduct a fair and impartial investigation into this.
I'm going to come in a moment to former Finance Secretary Garg and my two lawyers on the panel, but I want you to respond to that, Tuhin Sinha. Logic would suggest that any government, if this happened to this is one of India's top two businessmen, if something like this happened, the center, rather than targeting the opposition on this, would be focusing its attention on the facts of the case. And if the facts of the case merit an investigation, would say, we will order an investigation.
Rajdeep,
why y'all seem to protest it too much? What are y'all trying? Who are you trying to protect? Is the question being asked.
We have limited faith in a district level attorney of US. I want to read out for you an excerpt from the Economic Times of 13th April 2010, which reads, a US court has held that the former director of Indian operations of Thomas Weisel Partners has breached the fiduciary responsibility he owed to the US investment bank. The US court has also found that the official concern has caused injury to the investment banking firm. Praveen Chakravarty was a director in the US Investments Banks of India operations and also its head of research, which had 55 employees. Now, obviously, Praveen Chakravarty is representing the Congress, knows a lot about the US judicial systems because he has faced conviction over there. But we have limited trust in US, a district attorney of US passing such an indictment judgment.
No. Are you saying, therefore, that you have no faith in US laws? Are you saying that the United States has also carried out some kind of a kangaroo operation?
No, we will wait for conviction.
Shouldn't a government's first reaction when serious charges of bribery are made first order a probe rather than find someone, whether it's a Praveen Chakravarty here on the show or a Rahul Gandhi?
Like I said, we don't believe in knee-jerk reactions. A proper response will follow post the responses from each of the state governments. But if Rahul Gandhi is so serious, let him approach the Supreme Court. Let him ask for a Supreme Court monitored inquiry. Let him get Adani arrested. Okay. Imagine the leader of opposition of India demands for the arrest of people based on indictments, in which case he should be rearrested in the National Herald case.
Okay. I want to keep my focus at the moment on the Adani case, because the Adani case is where the indictment at the moment is. Subhash Chandra Garg, you're smiling as you were listening to politicians. I don't know whether Praveen calls himself still a full-time politician. He's also a policy person. But I want to understand from you, Subhash Chandra Garg, because you're part of the bureaucratic system. The fact that bribes are paid is one of the oldest secrets. At what level they are paid is another matter. But here you've got specifics coming out. Specifics, individuals, an entire timeline has been put in place. Do you not believe that this should lead immediately to an inquiry called at the highest level? I don't hear a word from ED, from CBC, from all the so-called enforcement bodies who are otherwise jumping at every opportunity perhaps to order an investigation. What kind of an investigation should be ordered based on a US indictment, if any at all?
So, Rajdeep, the contract in question is the SECI's contract. Which was awarded to the Adanis, and which was also awarded to another US company.
SECI and its Solar Energy Corporation of India. Go ahead.
Exactly. So that is the purchaser of those auctioned gigawatts of power, of solar power. And it's also the seller of the power to the states which are in the eye of the storm. It is the one which has also transferred that contract from Ajio to Adani. So in my judgment, it's absolutely clear that the SECI is the agency which must take immediate notice of it, file an FIR with the CBI, because there is a corruption case involved, and that is what the SECI must do it.
You're saying under the Prevention of Corruption Act, am I clear? Public servants being bribed?
Under the Prevention of Corruption Act, since the briberies are involved, officials are involved, ministers are involved, SECI's contract is in the midst of it all. Therefore, the SECI is the one which must immediately take notice of it and file an FIR with the FIR. The other one, the second is the offenses relating to the securities. So like in the United States, the SEC is involved. And the investors have been duped or misled by false statements. It is the SEBI here which has to take immediate notice of it and issue notices to the company concerned for making wrong declarations and disclosures to the SEBI.
So there are two. So there is one
SECI
point.
And SEBI.
Can I just? So therefore, what you're saying, one is Prevention of Corruption Act, which should be done by an FIR filed by the Solar Energy Corporation of India, which should under the Prevention of Corruption Act for bribery of officials. Number two, you're saying SEBI should order an inquiry of whether the Adani group in any way lied to them, or misled them or misinformed them and did not tell them about the pending investigation in the United States. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
the rest of it, whatever is going on in the political, that's a political mudslinging. That's a wider issue of the political cronism in this country. That is what we can discuss it separately. But as far as the crime and the violation of the securities laws are concerned, which have come out very clearly in this indictment, and we must take it very seriously. It's a charge sheet. It's a charge sheet which has been filed on 5 specific counts, and there's a very good trail, document-based, evidence-based charge sheet which has been filed. If you ignore it, what is now going to happen? Adani's had to cancel their bonds issue, which means that their access to American markets or his financial markets is getting denied. There's a lot of money sitting over, which has been sort of financed by the FPIs and the foreign institutions and banks, about 80,000 crores or of that type. If those bonds and the loans start getting recalled, and which is likely to happen very soon, it is game over for India's investment story. It's that serious. I don't know whether Indian banks and financial institutions would also act. They must also act because it's their loans also the equal amount which is involved. But immediately it is SECI and the SEBI.
Okay.
Which
I just want to add one point that while Tuhin Sinha said opposition-ruled governments must respond, there were 4 opposition-ruled governments at the time: Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. Remember, Jammu and Kashmir is also named, and Jammu and Kashmir was central rule. So, you could argue, and before I come to my lawyers, I just want to show this, the Adani group across India. In Telangana, they have an MOU which has been signed in January. In Himachal Pradesh, they have a cement plant, Apple procurement network. Karnataka, 20,000 crore invested. In Rajasthan, they've invested 65,000 crores. Tamil Nadu, they've invested 42,700 crores. Jharkhand, there are investments that it has. In Madhya Pradesh, proposed investment was announced in March 2024. In Gujarat, they plan to invest 2 lakh crores over the next 5 years. And in Maharashtra, semiconductor joint venture with an Israeli firm worth 83,000 crores. Uttar Pradesh, 70,000 crore investment proposals. Odisha, 60,000 crores over 10 years. Kerala also, left rule Kerala, 20,000 crores announced, quite apart from the port project that's ongoing. Sanjay Hegde, given what I'm trying to get at is, it appears that there is no one party or individual where there's not one state where the Adanis haven't invested. So whatever happens in this case is affecting various cases, states across the country. And SC Garg made an important point. It could also affect India's investment credibility globally. Given all that, how do you think the government of India should be proceeding?
I would endorse what Mr. Garg said. There has to be a criminal FIR investigated by the CBI. Whether the Solar Energy Corporation files it or somebody else files it, that is immaterial. And if you look at the indictment properly, the indictment primarily goes after one particular state government, which is the state of Andhra Pradesh. The indictment says that until power supply agreements were signed with the Solar Energy Corporation, this deal could not materialize. So once the first agreement was signed with Andhra Pradesh, based on this documented trail of bribery, then the other state governments could have followed. Now, the point is that all this material and documentation exists in the United States. The United States is prosecuting based on their laws. But everything has happened in India. India can't afford to shut its eyes. So the first thing is, for the credibility of the Indian system of the rule of law, there has to be a criminal investigation. It is immaterial as to where it starts. Right. Mr. Garg is also right about SEBI coming in. And I foresee possibly, which Mr. Sinha said, why doesn't somebody go to the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court, while hearing in the Hindenburg matter, had sent it to a committee. At this point of time itself, the FBI, the inquiries were on. There had been a raid. None of that was disclosed by the Adanis to either the Supreme Court or its committee. The Supreme Court should also be asking questions. I do anticipate quite a few agencies getting in, but maybe there needs to be a coordination amongst them.
You actually believe agencies will actually investigate? As you said, given the track record of some of the enforcement agencies, when it comes to some of India's biggest businessmen, let's be honest, it is spotty. And therefore, you seem to be more optimistic than most. But
no, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. It would be in the interests of not only the India itself, but also of the agencies, that if you start an investigation, then you can control the pace of it.
Yeah, but either way, there's a huge question mark. Mr. Agarwal, you respond. There are those today calling for, including a former finance secretary on the show, saying there has to be an investigation, both by the CBI on the Prevention of Corruption Act, by SEBI, allegedly because the Adani Group, which is a major input into the stock market, has allegedly lied about this investigation going on in the US.
Yes, they said there should be investigation by SEBI, by CBI, and Mr. Garg also added, with due respect, that there should be cancellation of loan. And with respect, you also said there is an investigation, doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani. But please see, somebody has to read this, and one gentleman said that we need not be childish about it. Let us read the judgment. It is not making any sense. No one can connect dots. Please see para 45. It says that because of this bribe, $2 billion would have come in profits over 20 years. And para 49 says that $265 million is the bribe given. If $265 million are deposited in a bank account at a rate of 10.64%, it would become $2 billion itself. So it does not make a common sense. Numbers doesn't tell you that. I can tell with my chartered accountant background that why would one pay $265 million bribe to make in 20 years $2 billion one. Two is that Supreme Court says a citizen cannot be hounded by the investigating agencies to know that whether he has committed an offense or not. That is against the right of life, so there has to be some material. It is not as if that you say point fingers at somebody, okay, it is only investigation. And can I tell you, a whole day I defend the people who are accused of various offenses. And let me say on the light side, you know, the moment a person is investigated, it is not so that, okay, you go and you go to a laundry, you go and take a bath and come out clean. I'm sorry, if a person is under investigation in the night, he will not go to the bed, and in the morning he will not go to the loo. So it is not so easy that
no, are you saying therefore we should just dismiss it as a cock and bull story? Is that what you're saying? A formal indictment by a federal court in the district court in the United States should be dismissed as a cock and bull story?
You yourself have said that it is an indictment. Whether it is a cock and bull story or not, we will know when the evidence comes out. So I don't understand. People sitting in US, they comment about they can have an evidence for the meeting happening in India.
So all the more shouldn't the investigation take place in India where the alleged crime was committed?
Fingers are pointing. You please see, on your channel, there is every day a political debate, and everyone is pointing fingers at everyone. So after the end of every show, there will be people pointing fingers at others. So I think at the end of every Rajasthan show, there should be 6 inquiries, because everyone will be 5 hours allegations on everyone. So allegations are allegations.
Okay.
Okay,
that's a strong. Allow Praveen Chakravarty to respond. Praveen Chakravarty, here you are hearing a senior lawyer of the Supreme Court making it very clear. Allegations cannot be the basis for what, according to some of Mr. Adani's backers, is a fishing expedition in some way targeting him. They claim this is all part of a conspiracy. Here you've got the BJP spokesperson saying George Soros could be behind Rahul Gandhi. Your response?
I mean, first, let's all grow up. Let's stop being childish. Let's stop being, let's be adults. To the best of my knowledge, this is the first time in Indian business history that a very big business person has been issued an arrest warrant by the FBI. He cannot step foot in America. He will be arrested. It's not some trivial matter. Why is America important? Anyone that runs a big business in India knows that for running businesses, we need funding. A large part of funding comes from America or Western markets. So if Mr. Adani, and I wish Mr. Adani has all the money to develop all the ports and the airports that he has won, apparently fairly through a tender process, where will he get the money from? He has to go get the money from America, which is what he was trying to do. Why did he go to America in the first place if everything was so managed there? If some George Soros and Mr. Rahul Gandhi was managing the whole system, why did he run there to get $3 billion? So let's grow up here, okay? So everything is not managed. There is a serious fact. There's an arrest warrant. The India's leading business person cannot step foot in America, and he happens to be the Prime Minister's best friend. Let's understand the gravity of the situation here for the sake of Indian business and Indian economy. Let's come together, resolve it. Like I said, we're all for whatever is the process which is fair, which is objective, to put an end to this and deal with it in our own manner and show the world, yes, we have the ability to resolve these issues within ourselves. We will deal with it ourselves.
Okay, I just want to, before I carry on with the debate, just to point out, hours after the US indictment became public, remember yesterday the Kenyan government scrapped airport and power deals involving the Adani group. That was the first immediate global fallout. These contracts were already facing questions from the opposition there after a whistleblower, Nelson Amenia, alleged rigging in the tender process. Our foreign affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, spoke to Amenia. Listen in to what he had to say.
I am not trying to fight India. This is just trying to get a good deal for the country. And, you know, I'm patriotic. I don't want to see my country lose. I want to see my country develop. We would like to have a better upgraded airport, but the right channels need to be followed. The law needs to be followed. If you see this, someone's proposal being approved in one day, then this is unusual and extraordinary. It means something extraordinary must have happened, and it's not for the common good of the people.
You know, you heard what was said, Tuhin. You've got the government of India saying we want to become a superpower, Amrit Kal, this is the age of building a new India. In this entire narrative of a Viksit Bharat, if the country's leading businessman is being indicted by a US court, surely there should be greater concern, as some of the guests are saying, which can only be meted by a proper, transparent inquiry. Why this hesitation? You know, the moment the Adani name is mentioned, whether in parliament or outside, the BJP seems to see a red rag somewhere out there. Why are you protesting so much?
No, we are not protesting. I'm not here to defend. I'm not here to, let me make it very clear that I'm not here to defend Adani. The Adani group is capable of defending itself. If
but the perception, Tuhin, over the last 24 hours is the BJP is going out of its way to defend Adani because of his proximity to the ruling government.
That's a contrived perception. We don't believe in demonizing industrialists and wealth creators. As Mr. Agarwal rightly pointed out, it's a very hasty judgment by the US court. And our reaction need not be that hasty. We are waiting for the responses of the 4 state governments concerned. And yes, Kenya also.
4 state governments and one
Kenya
Jammu
also,
and Kashmir as well.
Kenya
Let's
also,
not forget Jammu and Kashmir was
let me
ruled by
also
the
make it
center
very
at the time.
clear that Kenya has also acted in haste, which only gives weight to what our suspicion is. Adani ports have been growing, Indian businesses have been growing, and yes, in Africa, China also is an interested party.
You're saying the Kenyan government has acted in haste after allegations of corruption. You're saying the US courts are acting in haste and Indian governments are not acting at all.
It's for you to read the judgment in entirety. There are anomalies in the judgment, loose ends, you know, there are loose ends which are not connected in the judgment. So all I'm saying, wait for the conviction. But yes, we will not wait for an investigation. We are waiting for the initial responses from the 4 state governments concerned. But yes, Kenya has acted in haste. India's geopolitical clout is immense today, and I don't know why, you know, Kenya should have taken such a abrupt decision without consulting the Indian authorities.
Okay. Subhash Chandra Garg, are we all jumping the gun because it's Gautam Adani, because of these allegations that the opposition makes of his proximity to Prime Minister Modi? Immediately, it gets caught in a political tangle rather than the focus on the facts of the case.
So, number one, this is charge sheet. This is not judgment. I don't know why some people are trying to read it as a judgment. Hastily arrived at. It's a charge sheet. The whole allegations will have to be proven before the district court. And then the district court will pronounce the judgment, which might include imprisonment, which might include penalties and whatnot, and the confiscation of assets. That is the stage which will come maybe 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line. But the point which should be taken very seriously is that this is the charge sheet which has been filed. Think of a charge sheet filed in the Indian court. That is the stage at which the investigating agencies have concluded that the offense or the crime has taken place. It's not the stage of making the allegations or filing the FIR. So this is the stage which should be taken very seriously by everyone. At the government level, if you want to deal with it, the government should definitely be concerned about building India's Viksit Bharat story, in India's investment, India's growth. So government should be seeing what is the impact if we act and what is the impact if we don't act. You have the choice of not acting, which is what seems to be the current strategy. But in my judgment, if you go through that path, you will invite much larger trouble for yourself, and your own Viksit Bharat story will get appended in my judgment. And therefore, there is every reason to actually act rather more hastily than what we are showing up.
It's interesting what we've heard on this debate. Clearly, the lawyers, Mr. Agarwal has a very different view. He believes that these are mere allegations. Sanjay Hegde and Subhash Chandra Garg believe it's an extremely serious case that deserves full investigation. Praveen Chakravarty is very clear it's causing damage to India's image globally. It could affect India's international investors. Please correct me if I've got any of you wrong. And Tuhin Sinha says they're all jumping the gun because they wish to target Prime Minister Modi. Am I broadly correct?
Absolutely.
Right? But the point is, at the end of the day, you've got... yes, Sanjay, I'll give you 30 seconds. You and Mr. Agarwal, 30 seconds each. Let me come back to both of you. Am I right in saying, first you, Sanjay Hegde, that we've got to, while we order an investigation, it has to also be seen as not being a witch hunt of any kind, nor should it be seen to be protecting anyone?
Absolutely. The point is, this is more than a charge sheet. This is an indictment bought after it has been brought before a grand jury. This is the stage where, in Indian law, where a court has determined that there are charges which have to be faced, which have to go to trial. So that's the first thing. The most important message is we have to prove that India is not Adani and Adani is not India. Because if we do that, then Indian business as a whole will suffer. The cost of financing will go up. Every Indian businessman will come under a crowd.
So you're saying it cannot be seen that some special favors are being given to a particular businessman who's being indicted. If it had been someone else, there might have been stricter and more stringent and more speedier action. Here the impression is, our perception is of protection. Mr. Agarwal, your final word. You heard what was said by Sanjay Hegde just now, that India's credibility is at stake.
Yeah, it is by grand jury, not by trial jury. Before the grand jury, the standard of proof is very, very loose. Before the trial jury, it is the proof beyond reasonable doubt. So it is just like a charge sheet. And see, in India, so many politicians are charge sheeted. They are all fighting elections. So it is the conviction which matters. And please see the press release. It says that one is presumed to be innocent till found guilty. So there has to be an evidence. There is no connecting of dots. And as I said, that the numbers are not making sense. So in a foreign country. Maybe it is the...
So what would you propose, Mr. Agarwal? You're saying numbers don't make sense. What would you propose? You're saying wait till whether there's a conviction. You're saying wait till there's a conviction in a US court. Am I correct?
Ultimately, we see the evidence. It is only an indictment. It is 54 pages. Let us read the evidence on the basis of which this indictment is prepared, then form an opinion. It is an opinion by a person. In India, every day charge sheet gets filed. In 50% of the cases, charges are not framed, and 95% of the people get acquitted. Now, please see in 2G scam, where I was the lawyer, what happened after 7 years? And if we talk, I don't belong to any political party, but please see, the former Prime Minister who was holding the coal portfolio, he was charge sheeted in the coal scam. What happened? The case is lying. There is a stay by the Supreme Court. The case is lying. Former Prime Minister, the coal portfolio was charge sheeted. Every day there are files. People come in dozens to our offices saying that every day there is a charge sheet. They include everybody's name.
Okay. I've heard your view. I've heard all the views. I appreciate that each of you didn't talk over each other, and that's refreshing and reassuring, and perhaps therefore the audience also has been more educated as a result. I thank all my guests for joining us. You won't get, I hope, I believe many primetime debates will not focus on this story in the manner that it should. It is a huge story at the end of the day, and we will continue to track it.